Hi everybody. I'm going to switch this arpeggiator to latch mode because I'm not good enough at playing music to play chords and speak at the same time. But hello. This is Replay. It's a synthesizer made by Vongon, who you may know from their excellent pedals, such as the Ultra Shear, which we're featuring here today, which I've had for a long time. It's one of my favorite reverbs. The Polyphrase is a great delay they make. They've got a filter pedal. They've got an attack release collaboration. It's a great outfit. Everything they make is wonderful, and the Replay is their newest edition and follows their heritage of beautiful design and great sound as well. I realized the other day that I have been on a synthesizer journey for 5 years now. I grew up playing guitar, singing, playing the drums, playing piano, but electronic music began interesting me from a sound design perspective about 5 years ago. And my first synthesizer was a Korg Minilog, great instrument. If you see one laying around in the used section of your local music shop, play it, consider picking it up. It's a wonderful instrument, it was great to learn on. But there were a few aspects of synthesis in general that just mystified me as a guitar player. So I thought today maybe we would do a combo demo of Replay and then like a beginning synthesis video in honor of my 5-year synth-a-versary, but also because I know there are a lot of guitar players out there maybe transitioning over from guitar pedal world, thinking about getting into synthesis. And there's some things like what a VCA is, what is an envelope, that can really get in the way of jumping in and can cause a lot of fear. Certainly for me, it took forever to understand those two things, which are seemingly simple, but if you're coming from a world of physical instruments where your hands determine the amplitude and envelope, it's sometimes difficult to understand the kind of control and how to control those things with electronic instruments, the kind of control you have and how to employ it. That took forever to say. So let's do this. We've got some caffeine. We've got a great pedal. We've got a cool synthesizer. Let's start here and let's work left to right. Look at what Replay is, what it can do. Listen to what it sounds like. And as we do that, we're going to stop along the way and explain some foundational synthesizer things as we go. It'll be fun. If you need to pause this video and grab a beverage for yourself, do that. But okay, here we go. I'm going to turn off the arpeggiator, and as much as I love Ultra Shear, I'm going to turn it off too. Let's start with the key bed. These are like switches, cherry whatever switches, like clacky switches, which is an interesting tactile experience. I really like it. It's really satisfying to click these things. Beautiful design. Got our octave up and down. Keys over here. Yes. Let's park it here for a minute. So beginning left to right, we've got our LFO, or low frequency oscillator. This is a control source. So you can use this to control a few different parameters on the synthesizer and assign it with these knobs over here. It's basically like a wave that moves really slowly and acts like a magic hand that can turn these knobs without you having to do that with your non-magic real hands. Maybe your hands are magic, I don't know. But we only have two controls here. The first one is rate, and this is how fast that oscillator is moving. So I'm going to assign the LFO to pitch here so that you can hear. Hear how it's affecting the pitch. If we turn this up, it goes faster. Turn it down, it goes slower. The default waveform is a sine wave, but we've got a few different options that we can assign with the hidden menu or the web editor. There's square, ramp, saw, triangle, sample and hold, or smooth sample and hold. Now this delay slider affects how long it takes for the LFO to begin cycling or affecting something after you press a key. So if it's at 0, when we hit this key, it'll begin doing that right when we press it. But if we turn delay up, it'll wait a second before the LFO starts affecting something. Hear how that took a second? Kind of a neat feature. Okay, so we will unapply the LFO to the pitch of the oscillator here. This section right here is our oscillator section. Oscillators have one job, and that is to oscillate. When they oscillate slowly, we use them to change parameters on synthesizers, but when they oscillate quickly in the audio range, we use them as a sound source. So this oscillator here is an audio rate bank of oscillators, and they're what actually make the tonal noise of a synthesizer. This toggle right here lets you select the kind of waveform that the oscillator shapes itself into. This is a saw wave. Then we've also got a square wave. Listen to the difference in sound here. Back to saw. Square. And then again, with the hidden options, we can change that primary oscillator. A few different options. I think we've got like triangle, sine. Yeah, triangle and sine. So you've got some good classic waveform options here. In the middle position, nothing happens except for noise. And you can use this for a few different reasons. Like if you wanted to make a snare drum, you could do that. Or there is a jack on the back here for external input. And when you tell the synthesizer that you want it to behave this way, it will use that incoming audio as the noise source. So you can patch whatever you want in here. If you've got recordings on your phone of like leaves rustling or somebody laughing or a train going by, and you want to incorporate that and play that sound with an envelope, on a synthesizer, be my guest, says Replay. Let's turn that back on. And let's talk about these knobs here. Now we've got a few different ways that we can mess with the oscillator here. Number one is we can add noise. Number two is pulse width modulation. So on our square wave here, turn our sustain up. By turning this knob, we can alter what's called the duty cycle of the square wave. If I had a graph, I would show you, but this is an instrument, so just listen. It can change the way the square wave sounds. And then this knob right here, as you heard earlier, will assign our LFO to the pitch of the waveform. Now, that's pretty extreme there, but at lower settings, this can provide a really pleasant sense of drift. Really pretty. And especially when combined with the Ultra Shear, which kind of does the same thing on the reverb. So that's the oscillator section. Let's move on to the filter. The filter's job, now with synthesizers, you can create a ton of upper register harmonics, and those can be kind of harsh and outside of the audible range. And so you may want to use a low-pass filter to reduce the amount of harmonic content in the upper frequencies. This is a resonant filter, meaning if we use this slider, it will emphasize the frequencies right before the cutoff. It will also kill some of the low end. That's pretty typical of low-pass filters. All the way down to silence. Left the keyboard knob up. Oh no. Forget everything you just heard. Maybe that would be a good opportunity to talk about these knobs. So knob number 1 here, the envelope knob. This will take the shape that we make with this envelope over here, which we'll talk about next, and it will apply it to the filter, meaning it will open the filter according to the shape that we make. So like if we made kind of a classic pluck envelope shape here and applied it, even if our filter is most of the way closed, like let me turn this knob down, almost no sound here, right? When we turn this knob up, it's going to pluck the filter as well as the VCA. And this is a secret to making some really satisfying sounds. This is one of those things that took me forever to figure out that most people probably get in 5 minutes. The keyboard knob, which I left up on accident a minute ago, will track the filter with the keyboard, meaning like down here, we're not going to open the filter up at all, but if I hit this key up here, we're going to open the filter a little more. And if we go up the keyboard even more, let me turn this up more, and up the keyboard even more. Now, why does that exist? One of the main reasons why it exists is because, let me switch this in the middle position, where we make no sound. This filter will resonate if you put it self-resonate when you put it all the way up, meaning it will actually make noise. It'll make a sine wave. And if you turn the keyboard knob all the way up, it will track perfectly with the keyboard. So you get an extra oscillator. Beautiful sine wave. Ooh. So that's why that knob exists. And then lastly, the LFO knob will take this exact same LFO and it will open the filter with it if you turn it up. Sorry. Here we go. So this can be really useful as a kind of tremolo almost. Especially if you're synced to MIDI clock. We do have MIDI in and MIDI out back here via mini jack. So yeah, envelope, keyboard, and LFO knobs all affect the interaction of the filter with different control sources. Okay, how are we feeling? You're either A, learning synthesis, or B, learning about the Vongon Replay, or C, all of the above. All right, now on to the stuff that tripped me up when getting into synthesizers at first. And as I've mentioned, this probably doesn't trip up most people, but on the off chance that you have smiled and nodded when people on the internet talk about VCAs and envelopes, between you and me, we'll just go over it real quick. So, a VCA, or voltage controlled amplifier, is the thing that allows anything to make sound that you can hear. Like, think about a guitar amp, right? A guitar amp is, as long as the volume is not at 0, is always open or on. And you control the amplitude and envelope of the guitar with your right hand. If you strum and leave it open, you've got a sound with a fast attack and a long release. If you palm mute and chug, you've got a sound with a short attack and a short release. But your amp is always on. Your amp is always open. With synthesizers, VCAs are, by definition, when control voltage is patched into them, closed unless you open them. And the thing that you use to open them is an envelope. An envelope is just an event that happens through time. So, for example, if we've got our maximum sound, this is as loud as it can get, and this is time on this continuum here. The amount of time that it takes for your sound to go from nothing to its maximum volume, that's called the attack. We'll represent that with this line here, and it's represented by this slider here. So a short attack. Let me turn this off. It's instant. It's a quick attack. A long attack, which you might associate with like a pad sound, takes a minute. Takes a while. So like if this is a short attack sound, this might be a long attack sound. You know what I mean? And after you reach that maximum amplitude, if you're holding down the keys, the volume that you land at is represented by this S, this sustain slider. So if we put it in the middle, we'll go to max volume and then drop down to this specified level. And as long as you hold the keys down, it's going to continue at this level. If we were to turn this level up, it'd be louder. So we'll call that, sustain right here with this line. Now, you notice a gap between the top of the attack and where the sustain is. That portion of the envelope is called the decay. The amount of time that it takes to get from max amplitude to your sustain level is the decay, and that's represented by this D slider here. So, right now, our sound will take a little bit of time to get up to max, and it'll immediately drop to this level. Listen. Did you hear that drop? But if we were to turn this halfway up, it'll really naturally kind of fade off. Did you hear it kind of fall down? Let me make this more obvious. Did you hear that drop? Let's make it even longer. Now, as I mentioned, as long as we hold these keys down, we're going to be hearing sound at the sustain level. But what happens if we let go? Immediately off. Because this portion of the envelope, the amount of time that it takes for your sound to go from its sustain level to quiet again is called the release. No release means instantly off. Long release means it's going to trail off for a really long time. Somewhere in the middle sounds like this. So with that knowledge in hand, we can begin to design some specific sounds. Like if we wanted a pluck sound, we would want something with almost no time on the attack, pretty much no sustain, because we want it to drop back to nothing even as we're playing the key, and probably like a little bit of decay and a little bit of release. And let's apply that plucky envelope to the filter too. That'll help it feel even more natural. Yeah. Now, if we wanted a kind of like reverse guitar envelope, we might do something like this. Or like a sustain-y pad thing. You get the idea. Now, all of this is possible because this toggle switch right here, which says ENV for envelope, is saying, hey, I want you to apply the envelope that you've made to the VCA. If we were to turn this down, no sound, because this affects the maximum amplitude, right? Like we've assumed that our maximum amplitude point is 100, but that is controlled by the VCA slider. If for some reason you only wanted to get half of the volume output this synth is capable of, you could do that. But at 100, it'll get as loud as it possibly can. Now, envelope is not your only option here. You can also do a gate, which is just an on-off signal. I don't want to misspeak, but I believe the middle is a combination of both. Yep. So there you have it. The thing that confused me forever. And it didn't confuse me because it's difficult to understand. It confused me because I don't feel like anybody had explained it to me as clearly as hopefully I've explained it to you. But that's just a function of where I live. And I don't know, not a lot of synth people hanging out here. Okay, another star of the show here is the arpeggiator. An arpeggiator is a musical mechanism that will cycle through a list of notes that you give it to play. Let's go back to our plucky sound. And turn off the ultra shear here for a second. So right here, this range switch, we've got 1 octave, 2 octave, and 4 octaves. We're going to start on 1. This knob controls how fast the arpeggiator is going to operate at. This switch right here controls whether or not you need to keep holding down the keys or not, or if the arpeggiator's off. And this switch right here controls the pattern by which it will play the notes. Let's jump in and listen to what it actually sounds like. On keyed, I have to hold down the keys. But do you hear it playing that arpeggio? Change the octave. Now it'll do 2 octaves. Let's go to 4 and go down an octave here on the keyboard. And right now, our pattern switches on order, meaning it's going to cycle through the notes in the order in which I put my fingers onto the keys. If I go here, 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 and here, it's going to play them in that order. If we do up, down, no matter what order I put my fingers on the keys, it's going to play them from the bottom to the top and the top to the bottom. And then we've got random, which does what it says on the tin. Random order. If we turn a latch on, we can key something in and go get a refill. So yeah, that's the arpeggiator, and that's useful, that keyed mode there, because sometimes it's nice to be able to adjust settings without, unless you have 4 hands, you might need those hands to adjust things here. The last thing we'll talk about, last couple of things that I don't want to forget, there are a couple of different ways to get at these hidden settings. I'm not a huge fan of hidden settings because I'm old and I have a terrible memory, but these are not bad. Basically, you can assign some different wave shapes, different waveforms to the primary oscillator and to the LFO. You can change the way that polyphony is handled. There are some clock things you can adjust. You can tell the exterior input to be the noise source. And that's kind of it, which is great. And if you don't want to mess with key combinations, Replay has a wonderful web editor. There's a USB jack on the back here. You can plug it into your computer and in 2 seconds configure it exactly how you want. Save a bunch of presets. You can recall presets over here. You can save and load from the unit. So if you don't want to use your computer with it, you don't have to. But if you want to do a big batch of edits, you can do that there. That's pretty, isn't it? But if you don't want to mess with the computer, you can use this little cheat sheet, which I immediately spilled coffee all over. Thank you. And this Alt button here, you hold it down and press a key, and it will change stuff. So let's change our oscillator to triangle. Yeah, that's triangle. We could do a sine wave. I like sine waves. We could change our LFO to smooth random. Which is beautiful. Final thoughts on the Replay. It's beautifully designed. It's got everything you need and nothing you don't. I find myself, here's the ultimate judge of whether or not I keep an instrument for years and use it. It's not the feature set on paper. It's not even whether or not I should connect with it. It's how often I find myself reaching for it when I'm in the zone and making music. And the combination of beautiful sound, beautiful design, the size, the weight, it's not too big, but it's made to last. It's got a gravity to it. I feel like I can grab it and in 10 seconds be into some really beautiful polyphonic synth sounds. I believe it's a 6-voice synthesizer. Check the manual. Check me on that. But big Juno vibes here. I don't know. You can't go wrong. So that's the replay. That's how synthesizers work. Hopefully, even if this unit is not the one for you, you're armed with some basic knowledge on how to operate a soft synth or any other kind of instrument you find yourself manning the helm of. Thanks for coming. We'll see you next time.